Welcome into today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. It's up to the jury now, and President Donald Trump says it's not too late for Judge Juan Merchan to save his reputation if he dismisses the New York versus Trump case. Trump said yesterday in remarks outside of the Manhattan courtroom as the jury began its first day of deliberations. Liberal singer and judge on The Voice, John Legend, blames disinformation and misinformation about masculinity for driving Black and Latino voters to support President Donald Trump in the 2024 election. You're not going to believe how out of touch this Hollywood insider is. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, along with Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, had a ceremonial signing in Spartanburg yesterday for two bills focused on children. House Bill 4624, called the Help Not Harm Bill, and House Bill 3424, the Child Online Safety Act. The South Carolina Family Caucus played a big role in the passage of these two bills. Representative John McCravy, moderator of the South Carolina Family Caucus, joins me today later. Charges against Scottie Scheffler from his incident with Louisville Police at the PGA Championship have been dropped. We have all the details.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Judge Juan Merchan can save his reputation if he dismisses the New York versus Trump case, according to President Donald Trump, speaking outside of the Manhattan courtroom yesterday after the jury was handed his fate in this 5-week trial.
Thank you very much. I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt, because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. It's a very disgraceful situation. Every single legal scholar and expert said this is no case. It shouldn't be brought, and it certainly could have been brought 7 years ago, not in the middle of a presidential election. It was all done by Joe Biden. This judge contributed to Joe Biden, and far worse than that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. Far worse than that, by 1,000 times worse than that. The worst I've ever heard, but I can't talk about it. It'll be talked about, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But it'll be talked about in the history books. What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I'll stay around here. This is 5 weeks. And 5 weeks of really essentially not campaigning, although I took a big lead in the polls over the last few weeks. Something's going on. Because I think the people of this country see that this is a rigged deal. It's a weaponized deal for the Democrats to hit their political opponent. For Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States. He's destroying our country. He's letting millions of people from jails, from prisons, from insane asylums, from mental institutions, drug dealers pour in.
Trump went on to say, quote, "The confusion is nobody knows what the crime is because there is no crime. Nobody knows what the crime is," he said. The DA didn't name the crime of the moment. They don't know what the crime is. That's what the problem is. It's a disgrace. Trump's comments came after jury deliberations began yesterday. Since those deliberations began, the jury has sent Judge Merchan 2 notes, including asking to rehear his instructions. In New York criminal cases, we're told juries are not allowed to receive copies of jury instructions or witness transcripts. Trump, of course, facing 34 counts of falsifying business records in relationship to the $130,000 payment to former porn star Stormy Daniels. Trump has repeatedly called on Judge Merchan to recuse himself, as well as dismiss the case, including last week when he said Merchan could gain back respect if he dismissed the case. He said this case should be dropped by the judge. I think the judge, if he did that, could gain his respect back. The Manhattan jury began deliberations yesterday. And look, a guilty verdict in this case could have far-reaching consequences for the 2024 presidential election, and it could upend criminal case law in New York as well. While a not guilty verdict would give Trump ammunition in a potential lawsuit for malicious prosecution, according to legal experts who have been following the matter. This started, of course, when Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg indicted Trump on the 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Trump has pleaded not guilty on all of the accounts. Former 4th District Congressman and now Fox News correspondent Trey Gowdy, who was a prosecutor himself at one time, he's been in the New York City courtroom where Trump's case will be decided, said it was unlikely for the jury to find Trump guilty on some charges, but not others, and explains how the jury might decide to negotiate the charges in order to come to a decision. Here's Trey Gowdy.
Yeah, it depends on whether or not, it depends on two things, whether or not the judge is really willing to charge it and whether or not the defense is willing to accept it. Keep in mind, this really is a misdemeanor that just put on a tuxedo to look like a felony. Mm-hmm. So if the judge gives the jury the option of the misdemeanor and the jury compromises, and look, juries love to compromise. Instead of being a hung jury, they may say, let's compromise on the misdemeanor. There's zero chance that he will go to jail for the misdemeanor. If he's convicted of 34 felony counts, given the fact that this judge clearly does not like him, and given the fact that judge may want to send a message that no one is above the law, there is a possibility of an active sentence, custodial sentence for the former president.
So, you know, the way Donald Trump has defied political gravity, if he gets convicted, Trey, there's a possibility his ratings actually go up.
Oh, I think it's a probability. I think, and look, I'm actually pro-prosecution. I did it for almost 2 decades. I've never seen a judge that was this pro-prosecution. Right. I wish I'd had something like this when I was in the courtroom. So I think even like people who are not ardent Donald Trump supporters are kind of wondering, what are we doing here on a 6-year-old case that was passed on by the Southern District of New York? Right. I think it actually would help. I mean, I hate to say going to prison would help somebody. It usually doesn't. But it would actually help him because it kind of feeds the narrative that he is being targeted by our judicial system.
Trey Gowdy outside of the courtroom. Louis Gelormino is a Staten Island defense attorney and agreed that the jury would render the same verdict on all counts because all felonies are pretty much the same, he said. Prosecutors must convince the jury that not only did Trump falsify the business records related to the alleged hush money payments, but that he did so to furtherance of another crime, conspiracy to promote or prevent an election. That's how, as Trey Gowdy said, a misdemeanor was dressed up to become a felony. Bragg's allegation that Trump falsified records to cover up an additional crime elevated to a felony what otherwise would have been misdemeanor charges. And everybody knows this would have never come up with anyone else had it not been Donald Trump, that no prosecutor would have taken these type steps to try to elevate this type of misdemeanor to a felony. Mr. Gelormino said that in 45 years of practicing criminal law in New York, he and his law partner have never seen a case quite like this. He was quoted as saying, "This is the most absurd, obscene case we've ever seen anybody try to get convicted of, and for this to be a case against the former president of the United States puts it way over the top. Any citizen, anybody, should never be charged with these kinds of crimes. If Trump is convicted, he'll still be able to run for president. It'd get quite interesting, but what that looks like will vary greatly depending on his sentence. And according to legal experts, there's lots of options there. Prosecutors would have the option to request that the presiding judge could increase Trump's bail to guarantee his return for the sentence hearing, as if the most famous man in the world would disappear. But legal experts said it's probably unlikely that they would request 77-year-old Donald Trump to be sent to jail. The other option is for Trump to be placed in home confinement at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida residence. New York and Florida officials would have to coordinate, but this would severely restrict Trump's ability to campaign for the White House. And maybe that's what they're after. Maybe that's what they're wanting to do, is keep him out of the campaign trail. The third option, of course, is probation. And even in this case, a probation officer would be assigned to Trump, and this officer would have great power over exactly what Donald Trump could do, where he could go. He'd have to get permission from the probation officer to do anything. And again, maybe that's their end game here, is they're not necessarily wanting to put Donald Trump in jail. They just want to tie his hands. They want to keep him off of the campaign trail until November. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. On our guest line, Congressman William Timmons from the 4th District of South Carolina. Welcome. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Joey, good morning. Great to be with you.
Let's start with the trial of President Trump. The jury has heard the arguments. It's in their hands now. As a former prosecutor, what are your thoughts on what you've seen over the past few weeks in this trial?
I mean, it really causes me to question the rule of law in this country. It causes me to question the integrity of our criminal justice system. It's just outrageous. And it's a sad day that these partisan, I hate to use this word, but partisan hacks have just done this to the rule of law in the United States of America. We're supposed to be better than this. And this is what third world countries do. This is how dictators act. And, you know, the most egregious thing of all of this, never in the history of the United States of America has a federal prosecutor from the Department of Justice left to be a local prosecutor. That would be like a star player for, you know, a Major League Baseball team saying, you know what, I'm going to go back to the minors.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So it's just so openly partisan. It's so openly corrupt. So, I mean, it's just very frustrating that this is where we are. This jury should deliberate for 1 second and acquit the former president and the soon-to-be future president. But I have a feeling it's going to be a hung jury. So, you know, it could take time. But we're not in a good place as a country when this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Talk with us about that process. Any predictions on how long it could take this jury to either come back with a verdict or, as you say, potentially a hung jury and they can't come to a decision?
So closing arguments are done by defense and the prosecutors. And so now the judge has to advise the jury on the law. And this is something that a lot of people are really focused on. Professor Turley, professor at George Washington, who many people know, he's been involved in 2 impeachments, and he's a very respected legal scholar, is in the courtroom tweeting out everything. And I mean, you know, they're going to sit down and they're going to have a conversation. And I have a feeling that they're going to figure out pretty quick, you know, because a lot of the people would convict him for jaywalking and sentence him to life in prison on the jury. And I'm sure at least a couple of them think this is the silliest thing in the whole world. And, you know, if they can't come to unanimous agreement, then that's a mistrial and a hung jury. So, I mean, that's what I think will happen. Obviously, there's no way that they're going to acquit him. They're in New York, where, you know, this jury is probably 90% Democrat.
Yeah.
So this is just a partisan trial. And this is what happens when the Democrats see that they're losing power. With Joe Biden's poll numbers in the tank, he can't walk upstairs. He can't read a teleprompter. And he's destroyed the American dream. I mean, the American dream is on life support right now.
Yeah.
And if we don't elect Trump in November, that's going to be it.
Yeah.
It's going to be it. And so that's why this is so important.
Yep. On our guest line this morning, Congressman William Timmons, is there a chance, and I guess there's always a chance when you have a jury, it's unpredictable, but let's say the jury does come back with a guilty plea. What does this do to the presidential election?
So, you know, Joey, there's no precedent for this, obviously. The leading presidential candidate has been charged with these outrageous. I mean, I think everybody needs to understand that the New York General Assembly had to pass a law to extend the statute of limitations for the business records fraud criminal charge. And the district attorney ran for office on the premise that he would persecute and prosecute President Trump. So, you know, look, if somehow it is a conviction, the problem is going to be one. I mean, the judge could leave him out on appeal, which is what I would recommend. because it will be overturned on appeal. This is ridiculous. But, if he does decide to remand him into custody, which is within the judge's ability, there's two options there. They could remand him to Rikers, which, I don't know how the Secret Service would protect him. So,
yeah,
I don't see that happening. There's another thing is he could remand him to home incarceration, which, he'd go basically live at Trump Tower. And, look, President Trump's going to win the election in November. Biden has destroyed the economy. There's not a single American that can honestly say they're better off today than they were 4 years ago. And so that's what's going to be weighing on their minds. So what's interesting is President Trump wins, he would actually have to be, if home incarceration, he can't pardon himself because it's a state crime, not a federal crime.
Yeah.
So theoretically, President Trump could serve home incarceration in Trump Tower and be the president of the United States.
Wow.
It's just wild. Look, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about the different permutations of outcomes. But, if they try to remand him, I believe that the Supreme Court would take original jurisdiction of the appeal, which is a very, very unusual measure. And I think that it would be overturned, because if not, I would be very surprised if Trump being remanded to Rikers did not result in severe consequences.
Well, again, let's just hope we don't have to see that, and we don't have to experience that, because it is just crazy. While we're talking about trials, Hunter Biden is set to appear in court June 3rd, I believe it is. Joe Biden made an unexpected visit to Hallie Biden on Sunday night, supposedly to remember the 9th anniversary of his son Beau's death. Was this witness intimidation?
I can't imagine. I'm actually not even. So this is the weapons charge? He's got so many charges.
Yes.
He's appearing on the weapons charge?
This is the weapons charge coming up June the 3rd. And Joe Biden, of course, dropped in on Hallie Biden. She's one of the star witnesses. She will be on testifying in this case, and he suddenly visits her on Sunday evening.
That's the first I've heard of that. That's very interesting.
Yes.
I would imagine that it is somewhat unusual. And the fact that, has he visited her every anniversary? That would be my first question. It's something that we'll look into. Being on the oversight committee, I'm happy to ask these questions.
Yeah, I don't see where he has necessarily visited her every year. That was the White House's response when asked why he suddenly decided to drop in on her on Sunday evening, this close to the trial starting just literally in the next week. So it is interesting, and it would not surprise me. To me, it's sort of like a little nod that, hey, you're still in the Biden family here. We expect you to toe the line.
Well, Joe, the other thing, Joe Biden doesn't have the mental capacity to do much.
Yeah.
So I don't think that interestingly, the Department of Justice has already determined that he lacks the mental capacity to be charged with a crime. So, that doesn't just stop at the criminal at the classified documents case.
Yeah.
That's precedent now. The Department of Justice has determined that the man that is the commander-in-chief of the United States military, the greatest military in the world, lacks the mental capacity to be charged with a crime. That's not just a classified document, improper possession of classified documents. That's everything.
Yeah.
That is their determination. They now can't deviate from that and say you're intimidating a witness.
Yeah.
He legitimately has a get out of jail free card.
Yeah. Well, we're living in crazy times for sure, Congressman. It's always a pleasure to have you. I know you have a lot going on as we're in the middle of the campaign coming up June the 11th, the primary. Appreciate your time today. Hope to catch up with you again soon.
Hey, great to be with you. Look forward to next time. Thanks for having me on.
Sure thing. Soon going to be 4 years ago that I started my journey with PhD weight loss and nutrition. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, I might add. And I've been able to maintain that for almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years coming up in July. If this is the year that you have decided that you're going to get healthy, that you're going to lose that weight, that visceral fat that's so damaging around your waist, then now's the time to start. Let me encourage you to make that call today. 864-252-4925. Set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Boy, am I glad that I met Dr. Ashley Lucas 4 years ago, and that she got me on the right path to getting healthy. You're going to be able to do things that you may have thought you'd never be able to do again. Play with the kids, the grandkids, be able to hike and walk, and maybe play a full 18-round hole of golf and be able to do it and not get so winded. because when you take that excess weight off, you're just going to feel better. You're going to be able to focus. You're going to be able to sleep better. Your overall health is just going to be improved. 864-252-4925. Call, set up your initial consultation. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. You can say that you have heard it all now. Liberal singer, entertainer, known as the judge on The Voice, John Legend, blamed disinformation and ideas about masculinity for driving Black and Latino voters to support former President Trump during this election. Legend reacted to a question about polls showing Trump's increased support among young Black voters. He was doing an interview on Pod Save America. The coach went on to argue that these voters wrongly believe the economy has been suffering under President Biden. He spoke of the misinformation on the economy, citing low unemployment and manufacturing jobs that are coming back to the United States. Here's the exchange. I want you to listen closely.
Well, I think Trump performs a form of masculinity that I think is attractive to some people. And to be clear, like Black men, even an uptick for Trump is still a landslide for Biden.
For sure.
So Black men are overwhelmingly, more than any other race of men, are supporting Joe Biden.
Very true.
But, there is an uptick, and that uptick may be enough to win Wisconsin, or it may be enough to win Michigan, or wherever. And so, it's an issue that the campaign's going to have to deal with. And so, but I do think Trump performs a form of masculinity that is appealing to some men, Black, white, Hispanic, across the board. And that may explain the uptick. And then, I hear a lot of misinformation and disinformation about the economy under Trump and what's happened since. And to be clear, like, the economy is doing quite well. We came back from a pandemic. The unemployment rate is extremely low. It's like crazily low. It's low among Black people. It's low among Hispanics. It's low among the entire nation. And particularly because of some of the particular types of economic bills that Joe Biden's passed, it's actually going to be quite helpful to men because of the manufacturing jobs that are coming back to the country, the construction infrastructure jobs that are coming back to the country. So if you are informed about that and you objectively are observing what's going on with the economy, you would say, actually, Biden is really great for the economy, and he's great for men in the economy because he's bringing back the types of jobs that men often do. And so I think getting more education out there about what's going on with the economy and how helpful it's going to be that he passed the climate bill, which was called the IRA, but it was basically the most massive climate bill in the history of the United States and the history of the world, probably. All these things are like amazing accomplishments that I don't feel like he's getting any credit for, and I don't think people understand what kind of impact it's having and is going to have.
Wow. Biden is not getting the credit that he deserves. Legend said that Joe Biden isn't getting the credit for his, quote, amazing accomplishments in guiding the economic recovery after the pandemic. Now, earlier in the interview, and I wish I'd saved this for you, Legend said that entertainers should probably stay out of politics because they don't always have the knowledge of the issues, and that they should do what they do best, and that's entertain. Well, I think he should have taken his own advice. I think he should have listened to himself. If he thinks that our economy is better under Joe Biden than Donald Trump, that we are misinformed, he needs to get out among his people. He talked about Blacks being his people. He needs to talk to some of his people. I mean, he literally said that he thinks the economy is doing well, that we're just misinformed. He has no clue what the average person, and I guarantee he has no clue what the average Black family, the average Latino family, what they're going through right now. A Fox News survey, and this is what has entertainers and supporters of Joe Biden. And he's planning to, he has endorsed Biden. He did in 2020. And he said that he's planning to go out on the campaign trail to support Joe Biden sometime later in the year. But what has everyone concerned is this latest Fox News survey that shows that Biden is receiving 72% among black voters. Well, you'd think, well, gosh, 72%, that's great. But that's down from 79% in the 2020 election. And it seems to be trending downward after every single poll that's taken. Black voters in some swing states have sounded off to the media about their discontent over the economy, announcing they plan to vote for Trump in November despite their reservations about his personality. Legend pointed out that while Biden's support with black men has dropped, these voters are still overwhelmingly supporting the president this election. And it's true. They are. But boy, it only takes a few percentage points. When you have elections that are as close as what we're going to see again in November, 5%, 7%, that can play a big difference in the outcome. The uptick in support for Trump is a big concern of Joe Biden. That's why you have seen him focusing so much, and Kamala Harris, by the way. That's why you've seen them both focus so much on the black community, because they see it slipping away. Legend said it's an issue that the Joe Biden campaign is going to have to deal with, and he's right. The Biden-Harris campaign has renewed its effort in a big way to win back ground that it's lost among some of their key voting demographics. The Black Voters for Biden-Harris campaign will reach out to black student organizations, community groups, and faith centers nationally and in battleground states specifically as the president seeks to rally support for his reelection. But again, I get back to John Legend. And this guy who is a multi-millionaire, and he thinks that he's doing his people a service, that he understands what the average black family is going through right now, when he doesn't worry about paying $7 a gallon for gasoline in California. Of course, he probably doesn't buy gasoline. I would bet you he has an electric vehicle. What do you think? You think John Legend has an electric vehicle? He probably drives a Tesla, doesn't he? Wow. But so many of these Hollywood types, they believe this. They believe that Donald Trump, he has mean tweets. We're going to support Joe Biden. And it affects them. It hurts them just as badly. They just don't have enough sense to realize that. Again, hey, John Legend, take your own advice. Stick to entertainment. Stick to things you understand. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com. dawpickens.com. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, along with Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, had a ceremonial signing in Spartanburg yesterday for two bills focused on children. House Bill 4624, called the Help Not Harm Bill, bans certain medical care for transgender youth, while House Bill 3424, or the Child Online Safety Act, restricts access to pornographic websites for minors by requiring the websites to have age verification. Legislators involved with passing of these two bills say the bills will ensure children are protected in South Carolina. These two pieces of legislation were supported by the Family Caucus, and on our guest line today, Representative John McCravy, the moderator of the Family Caucus, is with us. Welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Joey. Thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Now, notice I called you the moderator because I now know that you're the moderator of the Family Caucus.
That's right. That's right.
I know we talked about this recently, but again, congratulations on the passage of two very important bills. Take a moment and just take a victory lap here on Sunrise, Carolina, because you deserve it. Talk about this legislation and why it's important.
Well, first of all, the Help Not Harm bill was our number one priority this year in the Family Caucus. And, you know, it will protect our children from these puberty blockers and these cross-sex hormones that are used off-label, by the way, and surgery to basically mutilate and remove body parts with the mistaken belief that somehow they can change their sex. And they can't do it. It's a big lie. And it causes permanent damage. You know, we went this summer. We were educated by doctors about the permanent damage that these drugs cause. You know, they cause sterilization, a myriad of other side effects, and you know, of course, surgery is permanent as well.
Yeah.
And so we've had testimony after testimony that was heartbreaking. From people who had this and regretted it. And we knew that 80%, the only reliable study that talks about this is it says 80% of children who are confused about their sex will identify with their biological sex by the time they become an adult. So we know that that's probably the best course of action is just to leave the kids alone.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this stops this what I would call experimental surgery that's terrible. And we were able to do this, you know, as a team effort, Joey. I know the Family Caucus definitely was a factor in this, and we got behind it. We made this a priority. But I want to tell you, just like our governor says, he told me when he was elected that he wanted to work together with other like-minded conservatives to get good legislation passed in South Carolina. And that's what this is a result of.
Yeah, yeah.
Davey Hyatt sponsored this bill. He took a lot of heat from the left. And you know Representative Hyatt, he's a tough bird, and he can take it. And Merle Smith got on board and co-sponsored the bill, and Palmetto Family and all these other groups helped us out. And actually, this was a bill promoted by Alliance Defending Freedom all over the nation. We're lucky to have Tanya Shelnut here in South Carolina who was able to help us through this. You know, we never doubted that the governor and the lieutenant governor would sign this bill.
Yeah.
So, you know, this weird philosophy, these weird ideologies, like the American Pediatric Association that apparently has been taken over by the left, they came out and said the other day that the words masculine and feminine are misleading and should not even be used.
Wow. Wow. That's just how nuts things are for us right now. And after the signing, I was reading some things online, some of the response. And I want to get your response to some of the opponents of this bill who said that it would be dangerous for children not yet ready to tell their parents they're transgender. So when is it okay for other adults, teachers, for example, to know something this important about a child but not tell the parents?
Yeah, you know, we've got to get away from this not trusting the parents thing. I mean, parents are not terrorists. You know, parents have the best interest of their child at heart. 99.9% of parents want to do the best for their children. And if they don't know, they can't do that.
Yeah.
So they need to know. And all this bill says is actually it was added by the Senate, and I thought it was a good addition to it, is that, you know, well, let me back up. Yeah. So teachers are not necessarily required, but the administration, when a child says, hey, I'm identifying as a different sex, or the child informs them that a boy, for instance, says, I want to be called by a girl's name.
Yeah.
Then the parents have to be notified. That's all we're asking. Any good teacher or administrator would do that anyway. So I would want, you know, any parent would want that courtesy to be done.
Sure.
But there's no onerous responsibility in that. I'll mention this. I had a pediatrician call me while we were passing this bill. He's the head of a big practice, and he said, I trained 7 years ago in Columbia. This would have been considered child abuse 7 years ago.
Yep.
He said, we never heard of any of this when I trained as a pediatrician. He said, so the left has taken over some of these associations.
Yep. And guess what, Representative John McCravy? It still is child abuse. So nothing has changed. So other than what the left, some of their definitions of things. So job well done, and kudos to the Family Caucus. All right, so let's talk about House Bill 3424, the Child Online Safety Act.
Yes, sir. Well, this bill has been passed in several states, and what it does, it requires these bad websites, I hate to even use the word, but porn websites, to engage in strict age verification before they can allow people to access their site. And what that has resulted in, it's prevented not only minors from viewing these pornography sites, but it's also caused the pornography sites to say, hey, this isn't worth it. We're just going to not have this service in your state. So I'm all for that. And here's the thing. It's like Representative Travis Moore, who sponsored this bill. It's like he said, he held up his phone and he said, look, we have bouncers at bars and at adult places that will not allow children to come in without an ID.
Yep. Good point.
He said, there's no bouncer on this phone.
Yep.
And he said, we've got to stop that, and we've got to stop kids from getting on. The average kid is now 11 years old that gets on and looks at pornography. That means there's kids younger than 11 looking at it.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a shameful thing on our society to even have allowed this to happen.
Yep.
And so this bill would prevent that. I want to give kudos to Representative Travis Moore, who stepped out on his own and filed this bill. And this year, our Family Caucus adopted it as a priority, and he's a member of our caucus. And Speaker Merle Smith supported it. Palmetto family, all the others got together, and we were able to get this bill passed. And I'll say this, it passed the last day of the session, and I want to say that Travis Moore was up there fighting for it to get it passed the last day of the session behind the scenes.
Yep.
And so he deserves a lot of credit for this. And also, the Heritage Foundation, and James Quarles is our legislative affairs for the Heritage Foundation in South Carolina. And he deserves some credit here too.
Yep.
So I tell you, it's a team effort again. And all the Family Caucus people got on board with this. When we get 50 legislators on board right off the bat, we got good things going on. And when our speaker and our leadership supports it, we can get anything done.
Yeah.
So I want to give credit where credit's due.
On our guest line, Representative John McCravy from Greenwood, and also moderator of the Family Caucus. And as you started this conversation, it takes a team effort. It takes a lot of people working together to pass this type of legislation. And as you said, one of these bills, the Child Online Safety Act, literally passing the final day of the session, that just means you never give up, right? You keep pushing.
That's exactly right. And there was some differences, what I would call petty differences between the House and the Senate on this. We had to put our children first and put aside any little petty differences that we may have. And the Speaker did the right thing on that, and he deserves credit for that.
Yep.
So we appreciate him. We appreciate Travis Moore up there fighting for it.
Yeah. If you'd like additional information on other issues that the Family Caucus has worked on in the past, working on presently, go to their website, scfamilycaucus.org, scfamilycaucus.org. And our final minute or so together here today, when we talked last, you were having your Faith and Family Legislative Conference at North Greenville University this past weekend. Give us a quick update on that. Were you pleased with how things went and the turnout?
We were. We pretty much filled up the room. We had great speakers from all over the nation, like Jason Rapert, the founder, Senator Rapert's founder of National Association of Christian Lawmakers. He's from Arkansas. He flew in. We had the president of National Right to Life, Carol Tobias, there. We had Tanya Shellnut there. We had this James Quarles that talked about this bill, the Online Safety Act, and other bills from the Heritage Foundation. We just had an all-star cast and crew here, and a group of speakers, and so we were very pleased with the way it went, and you know, we had the new president from Palmetto Family there.
Yes.
And so we just had a great time. It was a great time of networking. It was a great time to learn what's going on, you know, in the fight for life in all these different areas. And it was encouraging to be with these people who are the leaders in our country, some of the greatest leaders that we've had advocating for these bills.
Yep. Well, job well done. I'm sorry that I missed it. I hope you'll be doing another one in the future, and I'll be able to make it there. Representative John McCravy, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you for the work that you do, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you could trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. On the text line, Katrina writes, "Hey, Joey, we nearly bumped into you at Upstate Warrior Solutions. Ron is retired Navy. You look pretty busy, or we'd have said hello. It's a beautiful facility." Yes, it is. I was at Upstate Warrior Solution yesterday. My friend and colleague Bill Frady at News Talk 98.9 WORD always, once a month, does a remote broadcast from Upstate Warrior Solutions. What a great group it is, and what a great new facility they have. So I was out there yesterday. Ingalls was providing the lunch. Ingalls, love the prices, love the savings. So that's what Katrina's talking about. And Katrina, next time, be sure and stop in and say hello. Faye writes, "Joey, Jill Biden says the election is between good and evil. She may think Dems are good, but we know not so. The devil cares for his minions for sure. The New York judge is beyond evil the way he misled the jury, and he says if a hung jury, case will be retried. Please say it ain't so." Well, that'll be up to the prosecutor. But the way that they hate Donald Trump would not surprise me at all if they don't try to start a new trial. But that'll take some time. That will take some time. Texter reminding us early primary voting started on the 28th this week through the 31st, and then again June 3rd through June the 7th. You can vote between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. Avoid the rush. Vote the first week. All voting info at scvotes.gov. Thank you for sending this to me. Yeah, just go to scvotes.gov, and you can find out where to vote and what hours. Texter, "Joey, if Biden had been president during World War II, he would have given aid to Hitler and Japan." No comment. Our text of encouragement today, Joel writes, and this is a scripture from 1 Corinthians, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." Thank you, Joel. Always appreciate your positive comments here. Charges against Scottie Scheffler from his incident with Louisville Police at the PGA Championship have been dropped as of yesterday. But while talking about this yesterday, Scheffler's lawyer had a pretty heated exchange with a reporter who was asking questions about footage of the golf star's exchange with a Louisville police officer. Steve Romines, who is representing Scottie Scheffler, held a news conference after charges against his client had been dropped. Reports from both sides sought to resolve the matter in a friendly way, they said, and he criticized Louisville police for how they treated Mr. Scheffler while he was being arrested. That led to a question from reporter Natalia Martinez of Wave News, who suggested that Scheffler's reflection on what happened didn't exactly align with what he said in the body cam footage that was released. She said Scheffler agreed with the police officer after he mentioned his counterpart being dragged by Scheffler's vehicle after being read his Miranda rights, indicating that he was aware that his words would be used in a court of law. Romines quickly shot that idea down. Here's the exchange.
Steve, I have to ask you, though, the statements that Scottie made after the arrest don't seem to fully align with what you're saying right now. He admits that he got impatient and went too far.
No, here's what happened, is he is being interrogated after the most stressful situation of his life, right? And the officer is actually asking him leading questions and trying to get him to agree with them, okay? And that's why you don't talk to the police, because they are going to try to put words in your mouth. And that's exactly what they did.
But that was after he read his Miranda rights. He didn't
Of
have
course,
to speak.
he didn't have to speak. But again, he asked to talk to the officer. He wanted to explain to him what happened. However, they are trying to get him to confess to something that he didn't do. And the video evidence shows he didn't do it. That's why you don't talk to the police. They are not trying to get to what happened. They are trying to get you to incriminate yourself. And that's what they were trying to do to him. And he didn't incriminate himself. He continued to show the quality of his character by trying to diffuse the situation.
The body cam footage that is referenced here shows Mr. Scheffler sitting handcuffed in a police vehicle with an officer talking to him about what had just happened. Scheffler began explaining the situation, saying he had to loop all the way around the traffic in the road, which was due to the death of a volunteer at the Valhalla Golf Club for the tournament after he was struck by this bus. Scheffler said that the police officer told him to go in the way that he did, to go in the opposite way of traffic, and he goes on to say that the officer had told him to stop, but he thought it was a security guard who was mistaken about why he was going that way. The officer suggests Scheffler should have stopped his vehicle no matter what the case. Scheffler responded, "You're right, I should have stopped." Scheffler went on to say, "I did get a little impatient because I'm quite late for my tee time. As he was reaching into the car, he grabbed my shoulder and hit me. It seemed to be a little over-aggressive because the entrance was open, and I pulled up a little bit because I was afraid he was going to start hitting me. I did not know who he was. He didn't tell me he was a police officer. He just hit me with his flashlight and yelled, 'Get out of the car,'" Scheffler said. "You actually heard him, and he's a police officer," the officer said, talking to Scheffler later in the video. "He got a huge scrape on his knee. He's getting checked by EMS. Big bruise, so I don't know," he said. The officer said that it would be up to Detective Brian Gillis, the officer who supposedly was dragged by Scheffler's vehicle. By the way, it's been proven that he was not dragged. That did not happen. And this officer, Gillis, was reprimanded for not turning on his body cam, per the Louisville Police Chief, Jacqueline Gwen Villero, who said during a press conference after this that there had been, quote, corrective action taken after an internal investigation found improper protocols were not met. Footage from outside of the Valhalla Golf Club was later released. It showed the incident as Scheffler described it, where his window was down and Officer Gillis ran up to the vehicle and reached inside. However, at no point, according to the video footage, was he being dragged by the vehicle. When asked if Scheffler was considering further legal action, Mr. Romine said that he wishes to move on, but made the point that if he wanted to, that there is a case there, that Scheffler has good legal standing to pursue this if he wants to. Scheffler has said he just wants to move on.
There are absolutely grounds for a lawsuit. He doesn't want to be involved in one. Again, because who pays? The taxpayers of Louisville. Scottie Scheffler doesn't want the taxpayers of Louisville to have to pay him a dime. He wishes to move forward from this case.
And again, I've never met Scottie Scheffler, but everything that I've read about Scottie Scheffler is he is a fine young man. And even some of the other police officers defending his actions, defended how he handled himself under the stress of being handcuffed, literally thrown into the back of a squad car and taken downtown when you were about to play in the PGA Championship, something that he's worked for his entire life. And this, I'm going to say, overzealous police officer, because it appears that's the case now. We didn't know initially, but it appears that Officer Gillis did not handle this the way he should have. Now, Gillis released a statement following the decision to drop the charges, saying, Mr. Scheffler and I both agree that there will be no ill will over this going forward. Instead of giving a negative public reaction, he chose to speak with dignity, humility, and respect. My family and I appreciate that. Basically, what this officer is saying is, thank you, Scottie Scheffler, for not making me lose my job, for being a class act and moving forward and not suing the city over my actions, over my overreaction. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and we're going to win in the June primaries, and if we're going to win in November especially, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.